G'day guys and welcome, my name's Michael and I am the DeadAussieGamer, here to share with you my tips, tricks, ideas and strategies for playing and running tabletop role-playing games. Today joining me for this very special episode of Rolling With is none other than Janet from World Anvil. G'day Janet.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Janet is going to be talking with us today about women in the role-playing game community. Now, normally I'd be sharing my thoughts and tips and advice, but I figure while my experiences as a man are quite extensive, my experiences as a woman are somewhat limited. So I'm here to talk with Janet, shoot the breeze, and learn as much as I can about women in role-playing. So, to crack us off, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? How did you get into role playing? What is your bag, as it were?
Oh, big questions. Okay, so I am Janet. I am the founder of World Anvil, which is a world building platform and campaign management space. We have a ton of world builders of all kinds, but especially tabletop gamer role players, so GMs, who build their homebrew worlds and run their campaigns. In addition, I play Dungeons and Dragons for Dungeons and Dragons, which 10-year-old me is still kind of screaming about quietly in the background whenever I go live. So I co-star, I guess, with Michael on the Call of the Kraken, which is an extraordinary experience playing live for so many people watching and so many people on the internet. And apart from that, I am a writer. I am still technically an opera singer. I still work sometimes as an opera singer professionally. And I've been on the stage making noises with my face in one form or another since I was about sort of 9 years old. So that's my background. That's what I do. Lots of writing, lots of creative stuff, lots of stage work, generally having fun. If it's not fun, I'm not interested.
Fantastic. That's more or less how I live most of my life, making noises out of my face hole as well. Now, what was your first introduction to role playing? Like, what really kicked you off and made you fall in love with this amazing and awesome hobby?
So I started role playing when I was 10. My sister had role played, and because she was my older sister, I immediately thought everything she did was super cool, of course. So when my friend approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to play Dungeons and Dragons?" I was like, "Yes, I want to do that." So we had a little after school club at the school. They gave us like the maths room to use or something, and we ran a campaign. We played a bunch of sessions. I was some very tropey, stereotypical elven mage, I think. This was back, I think it must have been second edition, given the era, but I don't remember anything about the rules. I don't remember anything about the character sheets. I don't remember anything about the dice. What I remember is that me and my friends sat down and told an amazing story together. And at the end of it, our characters all got naked as a distraction and we ran away from a bunch of kobolds. That's what I remember. And it got me hooked.
Okay,
So,
plan 5, strip off clothes, run away. Okay.
Plan 5, nudity.
Plan 5, nudity and fleeing. That sounds about right. Um, all right. Well,
Then I did it for ages. So I got back into it via my husband, actually.
tell us
And
about that.
he told me that he played Dungeons and Dragons in this like very sheepish way. And of course, I had this previous experience that was so positive as a child. So when he told me this, I was like, "Oh my God, we have to play a game!" And then we got married. So it's yeah.
You played the game first, or did you get married so that you could play the game? Because, I mean,
No,
that's a winning strategy for GMs. If you're out there and you want to land a very beautiful wife, then by all means say, "I will play a game of Dungeons and Dragons with you if you marry me." And I mean, clearly that worked. So there you go.
Genius. It was the other way around, but I will remember that strategy. Maybe plan 6.
All right.
Marry them and make them play Dungeons and Dragons.
That's it. That's it. That's it. It's nothing to do with Stockholm syndrome at all. All right. So one thing I do want to talk about is that there are many out there who would currently claim that role playing and sort of tabletop gaming in general is a very male dominated hobby. Would you believe there's any truth to this kind of statement?
I definitely used to be. I mean, it's always pictured as, groups of boys playing together, groups of men playing together, often in somebody's basement, right? That's a lot of where the hobby came from. And of course, I read a very interesting book called Of Dice and Men, which is a sort of short history of the Dungeons and Dragons phenomenon. And it came from war games, which is a very male dominated and still is a very male dominated space. There's war game miniatures. I'm talking like reconstructing Roman battles, that kind of stuff, which is a very male dominated space. And I think for a long time it was. When I started playing again, and we put a table together via meetup.com, I think it was only men who came. Only men wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons. And I sat around my table with men who were all 15 years older than me and, a bit overweight and very white and very nerdy. And I did have a moment where I was like, am I in the right place? And then we started playing and I was like, well, none of this matters. We're all having a great time. So it's fantastic. But I think even in the years since I started playing again, which is not a huge amount of time. I mean, 10 years, sure, but not longer than that. It's become a space which is no longer male dominated. And I think the media, it's going to take the media time to catch up with that because the media is slow and the media likes stereotypes. But if you go to the playing spaces, it's not just men anymore. Like that's a fallacy. It's everybody. And it's particularly with the phenomenon of Critical Role and, more streaming where you see women playing and people get involved with the stories and they get captured up in this narrative. And then they're encouraged to play. It's not just men. It's really everyone who's playing now. And that gives me so much joy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the big things about this entire series that we're doing is about the different communities that seem to have found common ground in role-playing today. And I completely agree. I think historically there's been so much emphasis on the stereotyped version of the, 60s, 70s kind of nerd, in a basement, big beer gut and hairy beard and all that sort of thing. Whereas nowadays you have people who are all kinds of, men, women, jocks, different races, different creeds, different languages. Again, one of our co-stars from the Ghost of Saltmarsh game that we play is from Germany and plays role-playing games such as the Dark Eye, which are very popular in places like Germany. So there's entire cultures that just build up and expand around the idea of role-playing. And it really does mean a lot when you start to think about role-playing expanding to include not only one demographic of people, but all people, So that's just been an amazing change. And I mean, you and I were both at Gen Con this year. And I mean, you'll probably agree with me when I say there were just a wide variety of people that we got to meet there. They came in all shapes and sizes, and everyone was super friendly. And it was amazing because everyone was just there getting along and bonding over their hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're totally right that it's a place where a lot of subcultures have found welcome. And a lot of subcultures have been formed as well, not in an exclusive way, but in a way of camaraderie. So, for example, you get communities around particular franchises, you get communities around particular games, and I think that's wonderful. And as you say, they bring in people from all spaces. So you get, the jocks and the nerds and all of these different types. You get people who come really for the cosplay, but they love to play at the table. You get people who just come in a t-shirt and jeans and they feel welcome. It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
We have found and built ourselves a very tolerant and wonderful community. I'm very proud of us.
Well, go us. Go us. Go you. Go you guys. So looking not only at the present, but looking at the future as well, I would say that there is a rise in the different types of demographics, including female role players. If we were to say that this rise continues and we do see more and more female role players integrating with the predominantly male groups and stuff like that, In what way do you reckon this is going to change how we view role playing? How do you think that what's the new image? What is the new stereotype, I suppose, of role players, let's say 20, 30 years down the track?
I like to think that 20 or 30 years down the track, well, I mean, who knows at one stage, like at one level, but I like to think that it will be a normalized hobby, like board games are a normalized hobby with your family. It will be something you do with your friends. It's a way to have a shared narrative and a shared experience that is incredibly positive and incredibly exciting. It's not an expensive hobby unless you buy like 1,000 miniatures. Like you can do it with a program like World Anvil, which is free. You can do it with a pen and a paper and a set of dice, which will set you back $5. You know, it's the bar to entry is low. So I like to think it will become something that is mainstream enough that everybody gets the joy that we get. But the other thing is that to answer the second part of your question, what kind of like how will the narratives change? I think that as you bring more people into any hobby, you will start to see diversity within the kind of focus at different tables. So for my tables and for my GM style as well as my player style, I'm very story focused. I don't really care about the dice. You bring your character sheet or you don't. I will tell you the story. I will tell you, you know, what you need to roll to figure out if your characters can or can't do something. But I'm not going to focus on whether you can or can't have this piece of armor or whether you can or can't have some specific thing. If it makes sense for the story and you want to do it, I will find a way to make it happen because this is a shared narrative. There are other GMs who don't feel that way. There are GMs who feel like the grit, that is to say the stats and the rules and the numbers are incredibly important, and they run different kinds of games, and neither is wrong. But what I love is that we will start to see these kinds of variances opening up. We will see GMs who want to run romance games, GMs who want to run horror games, GMs who want to dabble with different genres, with different focuses, and it's all good stuff. Like it's different and it's good, and that gives me joy. So that's what I expect will happen.
Awesome, awesome. Now, you mentioned quite a lot on storytelling and story writing. Now, for those of you who are not aware of it, World Anvil is an amazing bit of kit that you can actually sign up for that allows you to really compartmentalize, establish, build, and grow an entire narrative world very easily. It is by far one of the best bits of software that I've ever used for building worlds and the like. And as a person of the male species, I find
Gender,
I think
please.
no species. I'm species. I am Cro-Magnon. Big slanting forehead. I find story writing captivating and enchanting. And of course, what you were saying now, you've also found an incredible joy in yourself, world building and telling a great story. What advice would you give to young women looking to step into the field of, say, creative story writing or storytelling or narrative writing?
Well, narrative writing or role playing, because they're different.
Well, a bit of both. More like not necessarily just portraying your characters as you were saying, but being able to construct and tell a story in the performance space of role play.
Sure. I think in both role playing and storytelling, one of the most important things is to focus on your character's motivation. Now, I know, like, I come from a stage background. I know how much of a caricature it makes me when I start talking about motivation. But seriously, it is incredibly important. It's the thing that drives your character, and your character moving forward is what moves the plot forward. That's the whole machine that tells the story. It's my character wants this. My character wants that. It causes them to act, which causes the space around them, the narrative, to change and grow and develop. So that's what I would focus on. And again, there are tools out there. World Anvil has a great character, like a whole character planner, essentially module where you can build your character, build a character sheet, do a social media style interaction and posting and that kind of thing to develop a POV voice. One of the things that I found incredibly valuable when I started out, and this was way before World Anvil, is I would write character journals. It was a way of digesting what my character had gone through in the session and finding long-term impact for the things that had happened to them. And that was very valuable because it mean that my character going forward would be informed by the things that had happened in a realistic way, rather than just like a list of things to tick off during a session. So that's a great way if you want to start moving into this kind of space, is character journaling, personal journaling as well. I know a lot of authors have found it very helpful. Doesn't really work for me, but a lot of people swear by it, so absolutely. But in general, in terms of narrative, focus on motivation of character, and that will take you a long way, hopefully to the end.
Awesome, awesome. One last question for you before we sign off for today. What would you say to young women looking to get into role playing, but may possibly be a bit hesitant to approach it?
Do it. Do it.
I can elaborate on that. So we have more options than we ever had before for role playing. When I was 10, it was the school math room or nothing. That's what we had. Now you can play online, which means that if you don't want to or can't leave your house for whatever reason, or you feel more secure, you can play in an online space. You can play in a video call with an online tabletop software or an online campaign manager. You don't have to go to another space, which means if, for example, you find it a little bit threatening, or you don't want to go to, somebody's house, then that's a nice way to start. You can also play in a public space. In London alone, there's the Bad Moon Cafe, there's Ludicrous, there's a bunch of other cafes where you can go, and they are spaces set up for role playing. So that's another great place to go. And they run events all the time. They run one-shot events, which is a great way to start getting into role playing, I think. It's not how I got in, but for a lot of people, going to a one-shot, sitting down for 4 hours, having a character, playing a session, seeing a little bit of what it's all about, and understanding that that is one experience of many different kinds of experiences that you will have in the space. It's a really positive way to start. And if you're nervous, bring a friend, because you know what? The whole thing is about storytelling with your friends. You will feel more safe. You will have more fun if you bring somebody with you. So these are my tips for you. Find an organized play, or play online, bring a friend with you, and have a great time. And you will not regret it. It is, even if you get to the end of the game and you're like, okay, this was fun, I don't want to do this every week, you will still have had a great time, and you will still have had a fantastic experience, because that's what it's all about. It's what we do. We have fun.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Janet, for your words of encouragement and wisdom. Your insight is, of course, always appreciated. And if you guys at home found some value in this video, then as always, guys, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Go check out all of our links. We're also going to be linking some of the stuff where you will find both Janet and World Anvil in the description below. So do go check them out as well, and tell them that DeadAussieGamer sent you. And of course, if you want to support us as well, head on over to our Patreon page, where as for as little as $1 a month, you can buy me a cup of coffee, which will keep me awake and alive for another month. So that'll be greatly appreciated. Till next time, guys, as always, game hard or die trying. See yas!